Toucan Play That Game is proudly sponsored by NiceGameShop.com, the place to go for rare and unusual Asian games. Hi, I'm Michael, take a seat and I'll tell you about 12 Realms by Mage Company, a cooperative game for 1 to 6 players set in a fairy tale world. Now, although it's called 12 Realms, the box actually comes with 4 realms, and then each expansion is going to add a new realm to that. The way the game works is that each player takes on the role of a fairy tale hero. You've got Siegfried, D'Artagnan, Robin Hood, all these well-known lovable characters that people will be dying to take on the role of and play and use to fight off the evil Dark Lords, because that's what this is all about. Each realm comes with 2 cards for the Dark Lord that's trying to take over the world. And you pick one for each realm, and you use a realm for each player. So if you're playing one player, you use just one realm. If you're playing with more players, you use more realms. Now, the way this works is before you can take on this Dark Lord, you first need to fight off his minions and grow in strength as you proceed along your adventure. At the start of each round, depending on the number of tokens out on the board, which represent the monsters, and you get these out by shuffling up the cards for the monster decks for each realm, and then drawing a number of cards depending on the number of players. You then roll a dice to decide where each one goes in its respective realm. So you'd have, if you were playing with the blue and the pink, you'd have blue and pink cards. You might get a lot of pink out one round, you might get a lot of blue out one round. And then you put, depending on the card that you've got, the appropriate tokens out in the number given. The players will then use their heroes to move around using action points. And the way the action points work in this is that they're action tokens, and you exploit these tokens and then you get them back at the start of each round. So you've got tokens that will allow you to move, tokens that allow you to fight, tokens that allow you to charm, do magic, etc. And as well as using these tokens to move around, you will also use them to defeat the creatures. The creatures have on them what they need to be defeated. It'll say, like, you need to use a sword or use this, and you just exploit it and you do it. You remove the token from the board when you're there. You will then find treasure, and treasure means you get these coins, which will allow you to buy enhancements to your character. So this is how you're growing and improving, by getting these that will give you, new abilities or new tokens to exploit each turn. Then, as this progresses along, because you've not managed to kill the creatures, eventually you get into the red area and the Dark Lord appears. At this point, you need to have collected up these artifacts. Each realm has 3 artifacts in its deck. Once you've got those, you're able to challenge the Dark Lord. If you've beaten all the Dark Lords for all the realms you're using, you win. If, however, any of these tracks get to 20 before you've defeated the Dark Lord, well, then you lose. So that is the game in a nutshell. What do I think of it? Well, obviously the first thing is that there's a lot of stuff in this box. Despite, the kind of little dig I did about the fact that it's 4 realms despite being called 12 realms, you don't get the sense that you're not getting a full game in this. So that is very good. Yes, it's a bit confusing that there's only 4. Because that's just because of the name, though. It's not that you feel, it needs more realms. It would be good to have more realms from a variability point of view, but 4 realms is plenty, and it's what you'd expect in the box, really, for the amount of game that you get. Now, with the visual artwork, I think this is lovely. I think it's charming. The whole fairy tale setting, I think, comes across nicely in all this artwork. And unfortunately, that is kind of the main place the theme is coming across, is with the artwork. Yes, the gameplay, you do get a bit of a sense of you are the hero, but again, that's because of the component more than because of the actual gameplay. The fact that you've got these not bad miniatures, really. They're quite nice for the price of this game. That you're moving around is good. Now, what else is there to say about this game? Well, it has a lot of pros, it has a lot of negatives, but I'm going to focus on just a few really. As I say, component quality is really good, and the coins, I particularly like that they went for these plastic coins. They're just a nice feature. It feels really nice when you get one of these, and sometimes that can be pretty hard to do. Other times, like if you're using Siegfried, it can be pretty easy to do because he just kind of gets money every turn and then builds up and becomes super powerful. That's kind of a problem with this because a lot of the replay value from this game comes with the fact that the characters are asymmetrical and that there's 8 of them. And so there's 8 different people you can play as and you'll get a different game experience. But actually, several of them, like Siegfried and a couple of the others, are just overpowered because they're not balanced. This is how the game manages difficulty in many ways. There is another way that you can have the variant of adding in the Dark Towers to increase the difficulty. There are a few other things. There are lots of variants and ways to adjust the game. But one of the main ways to adjust the difficulty is with which hero you're using. And so if you go, right, well, you can't use him, you can't use him, you can't use... You've suddenly really reduced the replay value on this game. And so you end up with about 4 heroes that you can use and just 4 realms. That's still a reasonable amount of replay value, but not as much as you would expect when you're looking at it and seeing 8 heroes. Another issue is the game features a lot of iconography and it's not all very well explained and can be quite confusing, and you're having to look through pages and pages on the rulebook to find out what these things actually mean. So what about the gameplay? How difficult is this? How complex is this? This is a very light game and it's not pretending to not be a light game. It is a family weight game of a co-op nature. It's not trying to be anything else. You're not going to expect anything too difficult. The puzzle nature of this game, because the combat is resolved just by discarding tokens, there's no luck or randomness in there, it can be a bit of a puzzle each turn of what is the most sensible thing to do each turn in order to ensure that this doesn't move up too fast. And for adults that can be a bit too easy to determine, but as a family game for younger children, etc., that gives you a really nice level of difficulty there. Now, with regards to kind of, is it more random or strategic? As I say, it is more strategic, but the level of strategy is not that high. Where the luck does come in this really comes down to what's getting put out. That is the big area of luck, the card draws. Okay, you've got a bit of it with the items, but the items actually, for the most part, are reasonably well balanced. You're never going to really be like, oh, well, that's a useless item. So that kind of doesn't really matter so much. But where the monsters come out and what monsters come out can make the difference, because if you're in a particular area and you are rich in a particular kind of token, if a lot of things that you don't have tokens for come out at once, then you're going to have trouble. But then because of the nature of the deck, there's only going to be so many of those, so it kind of balances out over the course of an entire deck, so that it's not a huge issue, but it does mean that you can... It's good enough to give you a bit of randomness, a bit of variability in the game, that means that each game isn't going to play out exactly the same way, which is a good thing. So, what else is there? Can 2 play this game? Yes, the game plays perfectly fine with 2. It scales from 1 to 6 without any issues, no problems. It plays the exact same way. So what do I actually think of the way it plays? What do I think of this whole tokens, the kind of small puzzly nature of this? I think it's a really nice game for families. I think for me personally, it is just that slightly too light. It just feels too easy. It lacks an element of excitement. Because the battles are just determined, the only real excitement, the only real randomness comes from the card decks, and the puzzly nature of it isn't difficult enough for me to really gain enjoyment from the puzzle aspect. It's just, yeah, okay, so I go here, I do this, I do this. However, the thing that annoys me most in this game is that in order to win, you have to do badly because you have to get this token up there. And if you're doing well and killing off all these tokens, this doesn't move and you're just growing stronger and stronger, and you have to kind of let the world fail in order for the Dark Lord to appear in order to win, which feels just counterproductive to the whole being a hero and destroying the monsters idea of this game. That's for me. For children, I think this would be a lovely game. As I say, I think the components are fantastic. I think there is definitely a market for this game, but it's not me. So that's my thoughts on 12 Realms. I do hope you've enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you have, please do check out the rest of the videos on the channel, as well as subscribing to the channel. And as always, thanks for watching, and bye for now.